Hello, everybody. This is Brett Davis coming to you from Chorus Attorney King Studio in Coronado, California, with the Brett Davis podcast. Today, I'm very honored to have Mario Garcia from Cop Shop.
How you doing, Brett?
Almost sounds like a thrift store or something.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, but I mean, it's a very interesting business that you're in. And so for the audience that's not aware, what is it? What is Cop Shop?
It started off, well, we provide law enforcement vehicles and law enforcement talent for TV, film productions, music videos, crime reenactments, and we've even done some birthday parties. We send out police cars with uniformed officer. We even do a lot of stuff for LAPD, like their events. We'll bring down a vintage police car down for them.
So the ages of the cars are what ages typically?
Oh, typically they're 2000s. The Crown Victorias are like my bread and butter. They work constantly. I do have some newer Chargers, like 2013, 2014, 2007. And then we have vintage stuff too.
So it's very interesting. So the thing is, and they are real police cars.
Yeah, I'd say about 98, 99% of my vehicles are real police cars. It's very rare that we will clone a car other than vintage cars because they're really hard to find, an old police car. They're just, people got rid of them. Nobody wanted them. They were beat, but actually we just, we just purchased a really rare police car. It's not only a rare police car, but it belonged to the LAPD, and they are extremely hard to find. And we found it untouched, sitting in a garage, only because it was found because there was a fire in the garage.
Huh.
And it was a multi-unit apartment building. The car got a little damaged from the fire on the paint, but it's it can be repainted, or those parts on the side of the car can be repainted. But they put it up for sale, and because they had to rebuild the garages. And looking in the pictures online, I'm like, that appears to be a police car. And then when I got pictures of the odometer on police cars, certain cars, a lot of them will say certified speedometer on the odometer. So when he sent me that, I knew it was a police car. And when I got down there, I looked for telltale issues of it being an LAPD car. And I was with my manager, Al Burke. And when we saw the shop numbers that the city puts on the cars, that nobody really knows what they are, I knew the car was going home with me at that point. It was going home with me regardless.
So this, you said it was in an apartment. Now, is this with the force, or was this in a private residence? I mean,
private residence. Yeah.
Were they supposed to have that car?
Apparently the owner passed away many years ago, and it had been left in there. So
nobody knows how it got there, other than the fact it was.
Well, the gentleman died, and I don't know if I'm being told that he was a detective. I don't know if he was a detective with LAPD. We're still researching that.
How interesting.
Yeah, he passed away. We don't know if we had family yet, and maybe the family, took his car that was on the street and didn't realize he had one in the garage, or if he didn't have family, whatever vehicle he was driving, if he even was driving, and he knows what age he was at, maybe it got impounded off the street and the other one stayed in the garage.
How fascinating. I've never heard a story like that before.
It's amazing. It's amazing. In fact, I've had friends in the production business tell me, you should shoot a reality show. You should shoot something around your business because it's very, it's a very, interesting business. And we have a lot of officers, and some are just actors that play officers, but we got a lot of characters. And that, when I was down there and I saw what I was doing, I'm like, the next day I hired a DP to just start following me. So we're starting to record things and just put it in the can, and later we can make episodes out of it, hopefully, and sell it.
So what started about your career? Because right before you started with Cop Shop, what were you doing before that?
Prior to Cop Shop, I started as a kid. After working, the hamburger places and all that stuff, I worked at Sears Hardware. I ended up working collections for a finance company because a friend hired me through there. He recommended me. And I ended up in an automobile collections place that did auto loans. And then I would get bored. So I would go out. I would go by the guy's house on the way home because it was in the neighborhood, because the repo man said, "Oh, the car's not there." And I'd drive by and there's the car. And I'm like, what's going on? So I would call the repo guys, and I got to know these guys really well. And I ended up riding with them at night sometimes. And I eventually ended up wanting to start my own repossession company, but I wanted to be an officer. My dad was an officer in Cuba before Castro's took over power. And So I was working at the station as a volunteer, working at the front desk, and I finally put in my stuff to get hired in. Was going through the processing, and then I had to apply for a repossession license to the state, and I passed the test. And it was right during the Rodney King era. Just the morale was bad, and I left to start my repossession company. And I did that for a good 5-6 years, made some good money, and I missed the police end of the business. So I bought an old police car to restore, just to have, maybe to take. We ended up taking it to parades and stuff. And the area I'm in, we have a lot of people in production, so people would see the car come out for the holidays, or they'd see it come out for the parades, and they wanted to rent it. And I started to rent it, and I was getting burned out with the repo business, even though it was good money. And they said, "Well, do you have a uniform?" I said, "Well, I don't have one that fits me, but I can get another one. Why?" And they said, "Well, hire you as the cop." So the car kind of got me into the business, and I would go to the audition. I started going to auditions, and as soon as I said I had a police car, I was usually hired.
It's like that guy, it's like that guy that has the pickup truck. Everybody calls you when they need to move or they need something. Now you got the top car, and everybody's like your friend, right?
Yeah. And then I'd go to castings, and I start to see retired officers. I start to see actors that had partial uniforms. Some had a complete uniform. And at first it was like, oh, competition. And then I had a call for, a couple cars and a couple guys. And I realized, and that's where I met my manager, Al Burke. I remember I came to a music video set that was, real low budget. And I didn't want to play the cop because they weren't paying enough. So I brought the car, and he was playing the cop. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, this freaking old cop, he's retired, and he's out here, hustling, and he's taking these low paying jobs. It's just a hustle. And it turned out, that we became really good friends. In fact, we just had our 10-year anniversary of where we met, and the director was shooting on Sony Studios. So he hired Al for a job, and I went down just to say hello. And, we took some pictures. And so I started getting all these guys together. And now productions call me. We'll send out a car, and we send out 2 officers. And the funny thing is we can usually, if it's a rush call, we can usually arrive before LAPD arrives if you make a phone call to them.
That's really, really neat. So you get into this business, not really thinking about it. It just kind of like happens. You meet, and then you probably. When did you realize that this could be a business? When did that come to your mind?
Actually, before I started renting the cars out, when I refurbished that one car, I went to Texas, and I bought 4 Caprices, and I brought them back. I just cleaned them up, and I put them up for sale, and they sold right away. So then I started to have them repainted and take them apart, kind of refurbish them cosmetically. And then from there, we would take the black. We were taking the black and whites and turning them into unmarked cars, solid color. And then when sales started to taper off, we started painting them black and white and renting them out. And it the first one I bought was actually after the Caprice. I had the original car, and I still have it, and it's the original LAPD car, by the way. That one doesn't have the LT1, but it's still valuable because it's an original LAPD car. The first one I added after that was actually an old taxi, and it was a natural gas car. And I bought it for like $700 for nothing.
Wow.
And it looked terrible. It had this brown, ugly paint job. And
how did it operate?
It ran good. I bought it for a couple reasons. One, it was natural gas, so the wife could take it to work and jump in the carpool by herself. And then after about a year, her driving, this thing had like 300,000 miles. It was still going. I had it reshot black and white and started to rent it out. I think I got another 2 years out of that car renting it out on set. And then we had an artist who wanted to destroy it. He put this big egg on it, like it landed from out of outer space. He was an artist, so we ended up destroying it, or we partially destroyed it, and he destroyed it even more and put this big egg on it. It was an art project. So I just started adding cars, and I probably was adding a couple cars a year, but now it's out of control. I mean, some months I buy 5 cars, some months I buy 1.
And you just keep adding to your arsenal, or do you flip them and sell them, or what is it you do with them?
It's extremely rare I sell a car. I did sell 4. I'm fortunate to buy from some departments will sell us fully equipped cars. They allow us to buy that they normally only allow other agencies to buy cars. So they allow a couple agencies will allow us to buy fully marked cars like we're a police department. Of course, we have the agreement, we're not going to sell them to the public fully marked. And I'm not in the business of selling cars. But during COVID, I had a call from a friend of mine who was an officer up in Montana, and his buddy had became a chief of a department, and the department was not receiving their 4 Tahoes they had ordered from GM. And I had bought 2 the previous year and 2 the second year. They were 2013, 2014 Dodge Chargers, fully equipped. I mean, they were amazing. They were over-equipped for what I needed. I mean, the shotgun racks worked. Everything was there. All they did was pull out the radios and cameras. So he says, I got a buddy who's got 4 more cars. So I ended up making a deal with that department and sold them those 4 marked cars. And I tell you, in the middle of COVID, that was in June. What I got for those 4 cars is basically what we get a year. We gross a year. So it was amazing.
So you, when did you realize that it started to pick momentum up? When was that breaking point where you're like, wow, this is really taken off?
I started the business in about 2001, and I'd say it really took off about 4 or 5 years ago. But in the last 2 or 3 years, that's when I've actually added cars that are non-police cars now. We're building 2 ambulances, and in the process of building those 2, I bought a used one because I need one now. We would usually refer that business to other people. But during COVID, one had his ambulances completely booked on some production for the whole month, and the other guy was out of town because of COVID. So I'm like, I need an ambulance. So while we're building these 2, I ended up buying just a used one to solve the problem.
You have any fire trucks yet?
No, never. They take up too much real estate, and trust me, it's.
I was going to say, because it sounds like you're going into the whole first responder vehicles. I was wondering if there was a fire truck coming up somewhere, but it makes sense. So where do you store all these cars? I mean, do you have your own land where you put the cars, or do you have a storage unit?
I've got a shop here that basically we refurbish them here. I don't do any painting. We sub out the paint work. We sub out the interior work. But we'll buy, we buy a car if it needs to be repainted and refurbished. I and one of my guys will completely dismantle the interior, take off all the trim, the lights and all that. We'll send the car out for paint. One of our numerous body shops we use, because getting good body work is just tough. And not all cars go to the same body shop. If it's a vintage car, it's going to get a better paint job. And we don't allow, cameras to be mounted on top of those cars. If it's a Ford Crown Vic, which there's plenty of those around, it'll go to a production shop. And then when the car comes back, we'll put it back together. The seats get dropped off at the interior guy. He redoes them. And then we put them back together here. And then I've got a guy who comes in and does all my lighting, electrical lighting. I used to do it myself. I don't have the time. And this guy, he used to work for an outfitting company, so he does a better job than I would in that aspect.
So you're probably getting a lot, I would think, as you've grown. I mean, it's not growth doesn't happen by accident. You must be really good at what you do, number one. Number two, you must people that work with you must enjoy working with you, and you probably get repeat business, and they probably tell other people about you. Am I correct?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because in the beginning, I didn't know how to get contacts other than going to these casting calls and, giving them a headshot with my business card stapled to it, because I really needed to get the car rented. So there's sites where you sign up and you pay, and, you submit your picture to get hired as an actor, and they bring you in for an audition. Well, those sites sometimes list the director and the producer's name on there. So I would, towards the end, when I was no longer going to the castings, I would just take their names from the producer's name or the director's name off the site and find his email. I would pop it into Facebook, pop it into Instagram, just Google search, find the director, find the producer, and just solicit them through email. And it worked, Luckily, I haven't had to do that for years now. So now it's all word of mouth. I do some advertising on some companies that have production equipment rentals, but most of it is word of mouth. And what I tell people, like, sometimes I'll be driving by and I see a big production, I'll pull in. And in fact, recently I tried to pull in, the security was there, they wouldn't let me in. And he's like, what are you looking for? I said, this production. And he's like, well, what's it called? I can't let you in unless you know what it's called. I said, no problem. So I back out, I drive down the street, and we're looking. When they're filming, they usually put notices in the neighborhood of what's being filmed. So I found one of the notices on somebody's mailbox, grabbed it, took a picture, got the name of the production, went back to the yard and said, I'm here for this film. And you're like, oh, okay, come on in. So then I found the production office and I said, hey, I know you guys got police cars out there, you got an ambulance out there, but this is who I am. This is what I do. And if you have something fail in the middle of the night, you can call me. We answer the phone 24/7. So that really gets.
So when you mean fail, like what? Give me an example what that means.
Could be a uniform malfunction, could be a car that won't start, could be a light bar that stops working on a car. It could be just that they don't have police cars on set, and the director decides, I want a police car today in tonight's shot. You're
giving them an option to call you if you're problem solving.
Correct. And they can't call another picture car company because they're closed at night, and I'm not. I'll answer the phone as long as I'm awake. I'll answer the phone, and if I hear it ring when I'm asleep, I'll get up and if they need a prop gun, if a uniform ripped, I'll bring it to them.
So has that happened many times?
It hasn't happened a lot, but it does happen. But when you walk into a production trailer or you walk into a company and you tell them something like that, you'll see chairs swivel back around so they can have a business card.
Yeah, because time is money on those sets.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And they don't have time to wait around. They need to get business going on, and they need to take care of stuff.
Correct, because they don't want to have pick up another day of shooting if they don't need to.
It cuts into the cost.
Correct.
How much has the pandemic affected your business?
It hasn't, because we also work on a lot of productions. The majority of the productions we work on are not union. We do not a lot of commercials. We do some commercials. We do very little union work, but we do get calls for it. A lot of stuff is non-union. During COVID, like as I stated, we sold those 4 cars. That did for us what we make in a year. But also we do a lot of work recently since 2017, I would say, with YouTubers, influencers. And they're shooting all the time. So they have pretty much kept us alive. Besides the fact that we sold those cars during COVID, it's constant business. And when you have a really big influencer who's got millions of followers, the other influencers watch what he's doing. So now we get calls. We get calls from them too, and they want to work with us.
So the influencers, of course, are getting paid well on YouTube. So they have the money to say, "Hey, Mario, I need some help. Can you bring me a couple cars, or can you come here and help me with something?" I mean, that's the way it works, right?
Yeah, they're doing pranks on their friends and stuff like that.
Oh, really? Is that what it is?
Yeah, most of the time. Like our first, I think that I can remember was an influencer was, "Hey, my buddy's got some beer. We're having a party, and he bought the beer, and there's underage kids here, and he's overage." So we went in there and said, we heard, we're looking for so-and-so. We heard you bought the beer, and we arrested him, took him down to the car in the apartment parking structure. And he didn't realize what was up until he was already in the back seat. Then they told him it's a prank, and he was just bright red.
So let me ask you this. So do you also have uniforms that you can provide?
We provide uniform rentals for those productions that want to bring in their own principal talent. And then our guys, if you want to work for me, first of all, you have to have that command presence. So it doesn't matter if you're an officer or not. If you can put the uniform on and look like a cop without saying a word, you're probably going to get hired by me.
No.
If you put the uniform on and you don't look like a cop, you're not going to get hired.
That's true. It makes sense because it's all about credibility.
Yeah, and sometimes, a lot of times actually we, most of the dialogue is the same. You're under arrest. We pulled you over because of this reason, whatever it may be. But lots of times, our guys work a lot of background stuff where there's no talking. It's just being a stern officer, Mm-hmm. So, like I said, if you can't look like an officer and give that command presence without even opening your mouth, it's just not going to happen. Not with me, at least. So, and if they want to come work for me, they got to buy a uniform. They got to make the investment.
I'm excited at what you do because I don't know anybody that does what you do. I don't think my audience has ever met anybody that does what you do. So, I mean, you were bringing some very interesting business into place, and also for people that are doing film, because we know a lot of people that do film. What's really been an increase recently is Christian films. They're popping up all over the place, and I mean, two studios are opening up, one in Arizona and another one in Ohio, and I know they're making more of those films, and they're knocking them out in under 4 weeks now.
Wow, that's big.
Oh, it is, and the profit margin is huge. If the films are decent, they're making a pretty good profit back. But I mean, we just saw one recently about the life of law enforcement and addiction. Mm-hmm. What a powerful movie. Dean Cain made an appearance in it, but what a powerful movie. And everybody in that movie, I mean, were non-cops.
Wow.
And and it's just interesting. Now we're talking to you about what you do, and we have a big support for law enforcement. We love our cops. We love our law enforcement, our first responders. What's the best thing about your job? Other than being on my show today.
Yes, of course. Probably the best thing is that my flexibility. You know, I don't get into uniform anymore. I'm usually like the emergency guy. If somebody fails to show up, or which is rare, or somebody gets sick, like, you know, I will take and put on my blues and go get into uniform and take care of business. So my client is not short that one officer. I don't want to, because I need to be in the office or come by set, make sure everything's okay. So that flexibility that I'm able to give these actors or these officers the job to go play an officer, so they get what they want. They're making their money, and my car's being booked on set, so I'm getting what I want. You know, is phenomenal, and I have the ability to have the free time to. If I decide to go to set today, I'll go to set today. You know, and usually if the food is good, I get a phone call from one of my guys saying, "Hey, they got steak today. Come on down."
The craft table was always one of my favorite places to go.
Yes.
There was always something good going on, right?
Yeah, and if it's a new client, you know, I usually try to stop by and meet them. If it's a client that spends a certain amount or over, you know, I will bring them something from my buddy's bakery at Porto's as a welcome gift for coming on board and hiring our guys in our cars. And they don't expect that, you know, and everybody loves Porto's. So,
well, what's a good website if people want to go and check out what you do, and if maybe, you know, any of our producer friends are out there, or even for even a nice gag to have your friend arrested, which I think.
Yeah. You know, we also do. Now that you mentioned that, besides the pranks, we do what's called Police Marry Me. So a guy will call us and says, "Hey, I want you guys to pull me over." You know, we do it in an area where we're allowed to do it. In this, you know, usually we pull him over in a parking lot, and we find fake drugs or a fake gun in the car, and he's already got the ring ready to propose to her. So we get him on his knees, handcuffed, or what she thinks he's handcuffed, and then we yank her out of the car. So she's standing right in front of him, and then he pulls his hands out from back, and he's like, "Will you marry me?" And so it's a prank, and it's a proposal.
Oh my gosh. I could see that being a big fight right after the whole thing. I could see the woman. Oh my gosh.
It's kind of like tears of sorrow to tears of joy. You know, it's
wow.
Really funny. But
I've got some my mind is brewing and how we could work together on some things, but you've opened up a Pandora's box. But that's okay. We'll talk more. Can we come and visit you sometime and do some video of your location, or is that private?
Yeah. Now's a terrible time, but yeah, sure. Maybe, you know, in the future for sure. Definitely, I would love that.
I love to see all these
boxes behind me are for the ambulance we're building.
I think your profession's fascinating, and I do think you should do a reality show. Maybe we can help you with that down the road somehow, connect you to somebody. I think you should have your own show.
I appreciate that. Yeah. We're hoping to get something like a sitcom. Do you remember the show called Taxi?
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't? Now it's classic.
We had a friend of ours who was a director, DP, and he told me, you need to shoot your show. You need to shoot a show about your company as a sitcom. He goes, forget reality. Do it as a sitcom. And then we discussed Taxi. He goes, basically what Taxi did with the taxis,
do it with yours.
Going to be cop cars. You know, and I go, well we can't shoot on set. We can't go to these, like, we did an Iggy Azalea music video. We can't have you got cameras running. He goes, it's not about that. He goes, it's everything up to that point. So I'm like, okay, we can do that.
Very cool.
So,
well, I wanted to say, Mario Garcia, I appreciate you being on my show today. And the name of your business is Cop Shop. Is that copshop.com?
It's copshopla.com. And then the refurbishing company is capricecars.com. But either one will take you to the same place.
So you do both those things. You're a busy guy.
Yeah, we still refurbish some cars. I mean, we used to put out about 6 or 7 cars a year to refurbish. Now we're only doing like 1.
Yeah, because you're a busy guy.
We're busy with the rentals. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being on my show, and you take care of yourself, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Great. Thank you for having me, Brett. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mario.
All right.
That's Mario Garcia with Cop Shop. Great guy. And man, I'll tell you, if somebody pulled me out of the car and told me they were going to marry me, I don't know what I would do with the cops looking at me and the lady on the other side. Can you imagine, Sarah, if I did that to you when we first got married? No. Did I ask you to marry me in a drive-thru? Oh, okay. You everybody have a good day. You take care of yourselves again. Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you.
And thank you to my sponsors, Attorney King, for being such an amazing sponsor, and also who's going to be doing the Academy Award, which is the Academia Awards for all the top 36 teachers in San Diego for everything they've gone through during the pandemic. And also thank you to Saquon Casino for their support, where we're going to be having the event. And Cody Martinez, everything you do. He's a phenomenal chairman there and does a lot for the community of San Diego. Also, Indian Motorcycle, one of my favorite motorcycles, beautiful motorcycles. And thank you to them for everything they do. And of course, the gym Thank you, George Jackson, and everything you do to help support our law enforcement. We're doing Law Enforcement Officers of the Month with the gym. Thank you for what you do. And of course, IB Fitness. Thank you, Marina, for everything you do. And we want to wish everybody a great week and take care of yourselves.